Good evening, children. I hope so you all would be remembering the chapter Mahatma Gandhi and the National Movement, because nearly 10 days have passed, more than 10 days have passed, and we have not continued the chapter. So I hope so that you all would have forgotten the chapter. So I'm just starting the chapter with a brief description about Mahatma Gandhi. Now, children, in the years after 1919, we see the national movement spreading. We see the national movement spreading to a new areas, incorporating new social groups and developing new modes of struggle. Now, the question is, how do we understand these developments? What implications did they have? So now we have to study. At this stage, a new leader appeared. At this stage, or at that moment of time, a new leader appeared and suggested a new mode of struggle. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, who was popularly known as Bapu or Mahatma Gandhi, dominated the Indian national movement during 1919 to 1948. Shringarika, the chapter which you are telling, forward block and the INA, I'll be teaching in the next class. So just continue with this. That is why this period is known as the Gandhian era. So that's why this period is known as the Gandhian era. He single-handedly spearheaded the movement for Indian independence. His non-violent techniques formed the basis of the freedom struggle. As a result, this person got the title of Father of the Nation. This person got the title of Father of the Nation. Now, if we talk about the life sketch of Mahatma Gandhi, so many points were there. As you know, from 1893 to 1914, Gandhiji lived in South Africa, where he became involved in efforts to end discrimination faced by Indians, who were a minority in South Africa and faced oppression by the South African government. Gandhiji became their champion. And if I talk about Gandhiji's political career, Gandhiji's political career started there in South Africa. There the Indians were maltreated. Many restrictions had been imposed on them. They could not travel with the Europeans in trains. They could not enter the hotels and clubs meant for the Europeans. The government denied them the right to vote. The government denied them the right to vote and subjected them to other humiliating laws. All the Indians, means they had to register themselves and fix their thumb impressions. They had to pay unjust taxes. They were treated like a tribe of criminals. Means the conditions was critical of the Indians, those who were in Africa. Gandhiji fought the unjust laws boldly and non-violently. Remember the point? Non-violently. Gandhiji was appalled by the discrimination he personally experienced as an Indian immigrant to South Africa. He was severe times mercilessly beaten and arrested, but he remained firm. At last, the government of South Africa had to accept several of his demands. It was a great political success of Gandhiji. It was great political success of Gandhiji. It developed in him self-confidence. It developed in him self-confidence to lead an agitation in a non-violent manner through his weapons of satyagrah. In the year 1915, in January 1915, Gandhiji returned to India. He successfully organized satyagrah movements in Champaran, in Bihar, against the oppressive plantation system and to support the peasants of the Kheda district of Gujarat. He went to Ahmedabad. This person went to Ahmedabad to organize a satyagrah movement amongst cotton mill workers. He met with success and became popular. This person met with success and became popular with the masses. India won freedom under his guidance and is rightly called the creator of modern India. Now children, as you are aware, the three terms, the ideas of satyagrah means satyagrah, Champaran and Kheda satyagrah. These three topics are not in your syllabus. Champaran, Kheda, and these three topics are not in your syllabus. Now, let's move to significance. My next point is significance of the non-cooperation movement. Now, the first point is many significant movements. During that time, many significant movements have started. So, firstly, we are going to start with non-cooperation movement. Now, children, as you would be aware that what was the non-cooperation movement? During the First World War, the Congress cooperated with the British. During the First World War, the Congress cooperated with the British. Gandhiji has requested the Indians to support the British during the First World War with the idea that at the end of the war, democratic rights and privileges would be granted to the Indians. However, repressive acts like the Rowlatt Act and atrocities like Jallianwala Bagh massacre led to the widespread disillusionment. Bagh massacre led to the widespread disillusionment with the British government. Mahatma Gandhi advocated a policy of non-cooperation after this Jallianwala Bagh movement and the passing of the Rowlatt Act. After that, Gandhiji advocated a policy of non-cooperation and a nationwide non-violence movement was planned. Now let's talk about significance, or what were the causes leading to the non-cooperation movement. The point is emboldenment with his success in South Africa. Gandhiji returned back to India after his success in South Africa. Gandhiji in 1919 decided to launch a nationwide satyagrah against the proposed Rowlatt Act. Now Gandhiji proposed a satyagrah against the Rowlatt Act in the year 1919. We should remember the year also. Gandhiji started in 1919 a movement against the Rowlatt Act. This act had been hurriedly passed through the Imperial Legislative Council despite the united opposition of the Indian members. The Indian members were totally against this, but then also the Imperial Legislative Council, means the British government, passed it. Now, what was this Rowlatt Act? Now, the question is, what is this Rowlatt Act? Can anyone tell me? What is this Rowlatt Act? Manas, Amisha, Vaibhav, Shringarika, Archika, just any one of you. Maheshwari, just any one of you type, what do you mean by Rowlatt? What is the meaning of the word Rowlatt Act? Any one of you type it. Okay, children. This act, Rowlatt Act, gave the government enormous power. This gave the government enormous power to repress political activities. There was an all-round political unrest. There was an all-round political unrest due to the, yes, Manas, correct answer. A person could be arrested without any warrant. Very good, correct answer. There was an all-round political unrest due to the Montague-Chelmsford reform. And this Montague-Chelmsford reform is also known as the reforms of 1919. This Montague-Chelmsford reform was introduced. The reforms of 1919, the reforms which were introduced in the year 1919, they failed to satisfy the Indians. The Congress considered the Government of India Act of 1919 as inadequate, disappointing and unsatisfactory. Remember, the reforms of 1919 failed to satisfy the Indians. The Congress condemned the Government of India Act of 1919 as inadequate, disappointing and unsatisfactory, while the assertive nationalists did not approve them. Shringarika, Manas and Kritika, Maheshwari, good, your answer is correct. While the assertive nationalists did not approve them, the early nationalists welcomed them. The atmosphere, at the time, the atmosphere was surcharged with passion and excitement. The English were afraid, the Britishers or the English were afraid lest the people should launch an agitation. Now, there was a danger that at any moment of time, a movement can be started by the people. With this fear in mind, the British government passed the Rowlatt Act of 1919. Due to this fear in mind, the British government passed the Rowlatt Act of 1919 to crush any popular or revolutionary movement. The main intention behind passing the Rowlatt Act was to crush any popular or revolutionary movement. It gave powers. Now, what was this Rowlatt Act? This Rowlatt Act gave powers to arrest and detain suspected person and to search them without a warrant and to imprison them without a trial. Just word simply means, the Rowlatt Act simply means that if the Britishers are having doubt on any Indian, then he can be arrested and without any trial he could be imprisoned. Without any trial means without going to the court or without giving any reasons why you are being arrested. Any person can be sent behind the bars. any person under this act had no right to, and if any person who is being arrested under the Rowlatt Act had no right to appeal, vakil and dalil. Now, and on this statement only, on the Rowlatt Act, Pandit Nehru has said, by this act, the government got autocratic right to curb civil and political freedom. This act came to be known as the Black Act. Now, nowadays what happens that if to any person, if the police arrests and you are sent behind the bars, then you are having the right to appeal, you are having the right to get an advocate, and you can keep your points, means you can keep your reasons, all the rights are there. But during that time when this Rowlatt Act was passed, the Indians were not having the right to appeal, vakil and dalil. It means you are not supposed to give any kind of reason. You cannot get a lawyer or an advocate, and you cannot keep your points. So that is no appeal, no vakil and no dalil. And this event came to be known as the Black Act in the Indian nation. Now, after this Rowlatt Act, now let's talk about the reaction of the people. Now, what was the reaction of the people after this Rowlatt Act was passed? This act was a blot. This act was a blot on the self-respect of the Indians and their national honor. It was against all principles. It was against all the principles of justice and liberty. Rallies were organized in various cities. Rallies were organized in various cities. Workers went on strike and shops closed down. Local leaders were arrested and Mahatma Gandhi was barred from entering Delhi. It means Mahatma Gandhi was not allowed to enter Delhi. A wave of anger engulfed the whole nation. Means at that moment, due to this Black Act, the nation was totally engulfed with anger and passion. After this, now let's move to the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy. My next point is Jallianwala Bagh tragedy. A peaceful strike was organized at Amritsar. A peaceful strike was organized at Amritsar on March 30th and April 6th. On 30th March and 6th April 1919 to protest against Rowlatt Act. And why this protest was being done? It was against the Rowlatt Act. The principal leaders, the main leaders of the Congress, Dr. Satyapal and Dr. Saifuddin Kichlu, two main leaders were there of Congress, Dr. Satyapal and Dr. Saifuddin Kichlu, were arrested and deported to Dharamshala. Your Dharamshala comes in your the state of Himachal Pradesh. The two candidates, the two main leaders of the Congress, Dr. Satyapal and Dr. Saifuddin Kichlu, were arrested and they were deported to Dharamshala. This sparked off a strike in the city, and due to this, the mob was, the common people were very annoyed. The people marched in a procession. The people marched in a procession to the residence of the deputy commissioner to demand the release of these leaders. The people marched to the deputy commissioner's residence and demanded the release of the two leaders. And the name of the two leaders were Dr. Saifuddin and Dr. Satyapal. Now, in reaction to this, the police fired 2 rounds. In reaction to this, the police fired 2 rounds to disperse the mob. The result was the mob fury at Amritsar. The mob burnt government buildings, and the reaction of this was that the mob burnt government buildings, looted godowns, killed a few officers, and injured two British women. The army was called in to restore order. And at that time, army was called in to restore order for the maintenance of law and order. General Dyer, remember this name, General Dyer. General Dyer took charge of Amritsar on 11th April 1919. General Dyer took charge of Amritsar on 11th April 1919. And this person took severe repressive measures. The word repressive measures means the methods by which you can crush the mob. He took severe repressive measures to restore order. Remember the date, 11th April, he took the post, and as a result, a protest meeting was held at Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar. As a result, a protest meeting was held at Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar on April 13th, 1919. General Dyer entered the area. Blocked the exit points. He blocked the exit points and opened fire on the crowd, killing hundreds. And in that open fire, hundreds were killed. His object as declared later. Later on, General Dyer gave the statement that was to produce a moral effect to create in the minds of satyagrahis a feeling of terror and awe. Later on, General Dyer gave the statement that his main intention behind this Jallianwala Bagh firing was to create a feeling of terror in the hearts, in the minds of the satyagrahis. Why he wanted to do this? Because the people will be shocked. Many of them would die, and later on in the coming future, none of the satyagrahis would even think of going against the British. As the news of Jallianwala Bagh spread, crowds took to the streets in many North Indian towns. There were strikes, clashes with the police, and attacks on government buildings. Means this attacks on government buildings is a very old story. Means whenever the Indians are annoyed, what they do? They totally harm the government. At that time, the government was of the Britishers, and at present time, the government is of India itself. But then also, if the people got annoyed, what they do? They start burning the buses, they start damaging the park, etc. So they were the government responded with brutal repression, seeking to humiliate and terrorize people. Satyagrahis were forced to rub their noses. See what kind of harshment they were showing. Satyagrahis were forced to rub their noses on the ground, crawl on the streets, and to do salam. The Satyagrahis were forced to rub their noses on the ground, crawl on the streets, and to do salam to all the Sahib. Sahib means to all the Britishers, they were supposed to do the salam. People were flogged and villages were bombed. People were flogged, people were mercilessly beaten, and the villages were bombed. Means the villages were also destroyed. Now let's talk about, children, that what was the impact? What was the impact of the Jallianwala Bagh incident on the national movement? Now, as you know that on 13th April 1919, this event took place, this Jallianwala Bagh tragedy took place. Now, what was the reaction or what was the impact of the Jallianwala incident on the national movement? The news of the happenings spread through the country, horrifying the people. The massacre was to be a turning point in Britain. This particular incident was a turning point in Britain. Indian relations, it gave a severe blow to the honor, dignity, and prestige of the government. Rabindranath Tagore renounced his knighthood in protest, and Gandhiji's faith in the British government was totally shattered. Means all the Indians, whosoever has got any kind of rewards, titles, or honors, they returned it back, and even the person like Mahatma Gandhi, he has lost his faith in the British government. It was no longer possible for him to compromise with the British. It was no longer possible for Mahatma Gandhi to compromise with the British, and he declared the famous statement. Remember the statement? Cooperation in any shape or form with this satanic government is sinful. Again, I am repeating the line of Mahatma Gandhi. Cooperation in any shape or form with this satanic government is sinful. Gandhiji now felt the need to launch a more broad-based movement in India, but he was certain that no such movement could be organized without bringing the Hindus and Muslims together. So at this moment of time, Gandhiji realized that yes, the movement can be started, but for attaining success, but for making the movement more impactful, the support of Muslims is also needed. The movement can only be successful if it is having the Hindu-Muslim unity. Then only the movement can be successful. But he was certain that no such movement could be organized without bringing the Hindus and the Muslims together. One way of doing this, he felt, was to take up the Khilafat issue. So now his target was to take up the Khilafat issue. Now before this you should know the meaning. That what is the meaning of the word Khilafat? The word Khilafat means when you are against anyone. When you are against anyone, that is Khilafat. Now, if I am going to talk about Khilafat movement, let's move to Lucknow. While the Lucknow Pact, in the previous chapter we have studied about the Lucknow Pact, the 5th chapter. What was the Lucknow Pact? Can anyone give me the answer? Kritika, Shringarika, Manas, Amisha, Archika, Maheshwari, anyone give me the answer? What was the Lucknow Pact? Lucknow Pact is famous for which thing? Give the answer fast. Just type your answer fast, children, so that I can know that what was the Lucknow Pact. Okay, I'm talking about the word Lucknow Pact. Now, Lucknow Pact was very much famous because after a gap of nearly 9-10 years, means after 1907-8, again Congress came on the same platform, means the reunification between moderates, the extremists, and even the Muslim League that also came to merge with it. That was the importance of Lucknow Pact. While the Lucknow Pact had prepared, while the Lucknow Pact had prepared the ground for common political. Very good, Manas. Your answer is it showed that Hindus and Muslims could put aside their religious differences and join together in support of a common political goals. Good answer, Manas. So now, children, let's move to the Khilafat movement. While the Lucknow Pact had prepared the ground for a common political action by Hindus and Muslims, the agitation against the Rowlatt Act really touched all the Indian people. The First World War had ended. The First World War has ended with the defeat of Ottoman Turkey, and in this battle in the World War, the Ottoman Turkey was defeated. The Allies had divided the territories, and what the Allies had done? The Allies had divided the territories of the Turkish Empire among themselves. They also abolished the office of the Khalifa in Turkey. It roused the anger of the Muslims, and due to this, as they have totally brought an end, they have totally abolished the office of Khalifa in Turkey. When this information the Indian Muslims got, when this news came in India, it made the Muslims very angry. They started a powerful agitation. The Muslims started a powerful agitation, and which is known by the name of Khilafat Movement. This Khilafat Movement was started under the leadership of Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali. This particular Khilafat Movement was started under the leadership of Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali. Now, as Gandhiji also wanted to start a movement, so now he was waiting for the chance, and this was the right time to hit the iron when it was hot. Gandhiji saw that this is an opportunity to bring the Muslims under the umbrella of a unified national government. At the special Calcutta session, at the special Calcutta session of the Congress in September 1920, he convinced other leaders of the need to start a non-cooperation movement in support of Khilafat as well as Swaraj. So during this time, Mahatma Gandhi started a non-cooperation movement in support of Khilafat as well as Swaraj. The Khilafat Committee unanimously accepted the suggestions of Gandhiji in June 1920. In June 1920, the points of Mahatma Gandhi were accepted by the Khilafat Committee. To defend the Khalifa's temporal power. You know the name of the Khalifa who was being removed from his throne. The Turkish king was being dethroned from his post. So now the main leaders of India during that time were to defend the Khalifa's temporal powers. A Khilafat committee was formed in Bombay in March 1919, and its main members were Ali brothers. Ali brothers means your Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali, Maulana Azad, Hakim Azmal Khan, and Hasrat Mohani. These were the main leaders who were the active members of the Khilafat committee. And the leader who was being thrown from the post was Pasha. The name was Pasha. He was the king of Turkey. And this person, the king, was being removed from his post. The complete name was Mustafa Kamal Pasha. Remember this name? Mustafa Kamal Pasha was the king who was being dethroned from his post. And now what was the problem? The problem was, during that time the king was the head, means he was the crown he is holding, and along with the crown the Sultan also used to look after the religion, means he was the religious head person also. So that's why this event was very for the Muslims, it was a very difficult occasion, as their religious head was being removed from the crown. Now let's talk about main programs of the movement. Now let's talk about the main programs of the movement. The main programs are: complete non-repression with the government. The first plan is complete non-cooperation with the government. The second point is boycott of British goods. Third point, boycott of councils. And the next point is refusal to join the army. Now all the people were inspired by such kind of ideas. However, the Khilafat movement soon lost its vigor. And relevance when Mustafa Kamal Pasha dethroned the Turkish Sultan and declared Turkey a secular state. But after a short span of time, again Mustafa Kamal Pasha got the crown, he got the throne, and this person, he declared Turkey as a secular state. The Khilafat movement came to an end. This Khilafat movement came to an end, and it merged with the non-cooperation movement. And this non-cooperation movement was launched by Mahatma Gandhi. So for today, this much only, children. I'll be asking you now. I should ask you the questions. Now I should start the question round, children. Tell me. I'm waiting for a response. Now, come to the questions. Now the questions are, as you can see on your screen. My first question is, yes, what happened, Manas? My questions are, first question, and I need answer from all the children. The question is, in which year was the Champaran Satyagraha launched? In which year was the Champaran Satyagraha launched? Tell me the answer of this question. The options are, you will get the options also. The options are 1918, 1919, 1917 and 1916. Yes, Manas, only you have sent the answer. Where are the other children? Kritika, Maheshwari, Shringarika, Amisha, and Archika, Ayush, Vaibhav. Send your answer, children, fast. Yes, Manas, your answer is correct. In the year 1917, the Champaran Satyagrah was launched in India. And this was Gandhiji's first great experiment. And this Champaran Satyagrah was the Gandhiji's first great experiment in Satyagrah. It was accomplished in 1917 in Champaran, and your Champaran comes in Bihar. Now, the next question. My next question is, in which state did the Kheda campaign, in which state did the Kheda campaign started? Options are Bihar, Gujarat, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh. Send your answer. Yes, Manas, correct. Yes, the answer is correct. That is Gujarat. That's the correct answer. Now, the next question. Now, one question I have asked, just read that question carefully. Forced recruitment. Forced recruitment means a process by which. Forced recruitment means a process by which. Option A. Indians were forced by the British rulers to finance the British army. Option second. The Indian princes had to supply soldiers to fight for the British. Option C. The colonial state forced people in rural areas to join the army. And option D. None of the above. So you have to send your answer for this question. Good, Manas. You have sent your answer. Good. Kritika, read the question again. Just read the question once more. Archika, where are you? Send your answer. Ayush Kumar Dikshit. The correct answer for this question is option C. The colonial states, means the East India Company, they were forcing the people in rural areas to join the army. Means the people were forcefully joining the army, as the area means especially the people of the rural areas. Good Ayush, and try to be more positive, means start giving the answers. Maximum the answer can be wrong, so that's not a problem. Now the next question: the growth of modern nationalism in India. The growth of modern nationalism in India, as in Vietnam, is closely connected to a sense of oppression under colonialism and anti-colonial movement, a discovery of unity in their struggle with colonialism, or all the above. Okay, children. The answer for this question is an anti-colonial movement. This was anti-colonial, or you can say all the above. Okay. So now I'll be doing the remaining part of the chapter tomorrow, and I hope so that you would have understood whatever I have taught you today. And children, try to be more active and give the answers.